the dichotomy between thinking and feeling. Now, because in my cognitive function stack, I have thinking and feeling in the middle, and over the years, I've been able to kind of get into touch with these cognitive functions. I feel like I've gotten around to having some balance in my life. So I do feel whenever you have two functions in the middle, and this might be true for someone who has two sensing functions in the middle, like, SENI, maybe they're fairly balanced. So for myself, I'm thinking and I'm feeling. I'm driven by emotions, I'm driven by thoughts. I have both operating. Sometimes I say that I'm making a decision based on factual information, and really actually it's driven by a congruence with my purpose and integrity of identity. Sometimes my values around information and facts are so strong that that's really what's driving it, not necessarily the extroverted thinking principles that I'm operating by. It's actually the individualized values that I've taken upon myself and wrapped into my core as my identity. I mean, I think INTJs are very emotional people, and we are often driven by our emotions, but we're often driven by that need to kind of like shove those emotions down into the corner and then justify ourselves with reasons or rationalizations for why we are acting in a certain way. And you better believe that I have a reason for every single thing I do, and I can explain it to you if you ask. But who's asking? Not very many people. Let's get into it. We're looking at the thinking-feeling dichotomy. So, thinking is a process of evaluating, making judgments based on objective criteria and principles or logic. Now, I myself tend to focus on logic. I think thinking is the logic function. Using this process, we detach ourselves from our values and seek to make decisions based on principles alone. I guess you could see it that way, because it's really hard to isolate thinking away from feeling. Activities like discrimination according to a set of criteria or objectively defined standards. I do agree with objectively defined standards. Analysis according to a set of principles, logic, and cause-effect reasoning are all examples of making thinking judgments. Cause and effect is something that can be scoped by NI and your introverted intuition awareness. I feel like cause and effect can also kind of be scoped by intuition in general, so extroverted intuition, except for extroverted intuition doesn't really latch on to ideas long enough to completely explore cause and effect relationships all the time. I mean, sometimes they observe it, but it's not really a focus of NE. It's more of an NI thing. Now, perhaps TI logic is making judgments based on cause and effect, but I don't know if it's solely responsible for grabbing those cause and effect relationships. In comparison, what is feeling? Feeling is a process of making evaluations based on what is important, where personal, interpersonal, or universal values serve as guideposts. That's so vague. Using the cognitive process of feeling, we engage personally with the information to decide according to the impact on people, appropriateness, harmony, likes and dislikes, weighing different values. Okay, values. Weighing different values. That's how I would describe feeling. Values, if I had to choose one word. Considering ethical and moral issues, FE and FI. Attending to personal and relationship goals. I think attending to personal and relationship goals is not only a feeling thing. I think you're using all of your functions in order to attend to your personal relationships, all of them, in concert. Because relationships are such a vast and important thing that you need all of your functions working on it. It's a big task. Having a belief in something all involve feeling judgments. Okay, so you're making judgments based on values. That's how I would describe it. I think that's the easiest way. So let's get back over to extroverted thinking where I'm more comfortable. What do they say about this? Contingency planning, scheduling, and quantifying utilize the process of extroverted thinking. Yeah. Again, contingency planning, I feel like contingencies and scoping contingencies falls under NI, and TE utilizes that information. Scheduling has a time element, and I think TE can dig into NI or SI for a time element, because SI is paying attention to detail, and details such as time. Extroverted thinking helps us organize our environment and ideas through charts, tables, graphs, and okay. I mean, these are like maybe artifacts of TE in the workplace. I don't know if we should, I don't think we should give that to TE, because FE individuals can use charts, tables, graphs, and flowcharts and outlines. Those are tools that anybody can use. It's not a symptom of extroverted thinking. At its most sophisticated, this process is about organizing and monitoring people and things to work efficiently and productively. Yes, you can marshal people with extroverted thinking, sure. But you can say, forget people. I don't like people. So extroverted thinking can go out into the world and focus solely on tasks and systems if it wants to. And it can exclude people from its machinations as much as it wants. It might not get as far, but it can do that. Empirical thinking, is at the core. Empirical thinking, it's like, where's the data? Does the data say that this works? Does it function in reality? So if I'm thinking about extroverted thinking, the word I associate it with is functionality. When we challenge someone's ideas based on logic and facts in front of us, or lay out reasonable explanations for decisions or conclusions made, TE is always going to have a reasonable explanation, and that's why so many people gravitate towards the guidance that TE offers, because it seems really grounded in reality, and it seems to be valid, even when it's talking out of its ass. You can make anything sound good, just saying. So I think you should be aware of that, especially with dominant extroverted thinking. Often trying to establish order in someone else's thought process. In written or verbal communication, extroverted thinking helps us easily follow someone else's logic, sequence, or organization. Maybe. I'm not sure about that one. It also helps us notice when something is missing, like when someone says he or she is going to talk about 4 topics and talks only about 3. I don't know. I think the brain just sometimes is like, wait a minute. You said 1, 2, C. You didn't say 1, 2, 3. You didn't sequence that correctly. I don't think that's a TE thing. I think that's kind of just how the brain holistically functions, because the brain notices differences as part of our survival instinct. We pick out differences within our environment so we don't die. I don't think that's TE. If anything, that's sensory. And then if you're abstracting it, then it's intuition. So it's awareness. It's a basic awareness property. It's not a thinking, judging thing. Now, maybe if you extrapolate that to say, in general, thinking helps you determine when someone's logic is invalid or incorrect. Because I think if you understand informal or functional logic, you can kind of see where someone's argumentation is flawed, or if they're incorporating certain logical fallacies, if they're appealing to emotion, if they're, like poisoning the well, or, setting up a straw man, something like that. I think thinking in general, if you kind of understand the way thinking works and you're kind of embedded within that world, you can pick out other people's logical inconsistencies. So maybe that's what it's saying. This is extremely reductive to say you're noticing when something is missing, because that's sensing or intuiting, I think. Awareness. In general, it allows us to compartmentalize many aspects of our lives so that we can do what is necessary to accomplish our objectives. Compartmentalization. I would not give over to extroverted thinking. Compartmentalization is a coping strategy. Now, extroverted thinking is concerned with competence and appearing competent amongst peers. So often, compartmentalization is a coping strategy utilized by those with high extroverted thinking. But I don't think it's an inherent aspect of extroverted thinking. I think that's unfair. Compartmentalization, oftentimes within our world, is like very cruelly seen as a detriment. It's seen as being unhealthy. It's seen as repressing your emotions. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's very functional. Now, is it used to extremes and abused by those with higher extroverted thinking? Maybe. And that might be a flaw that someone with these sort of patterns are constantly trying to correct if they're growing over the course of their life. So I wanted to do, in comparison to extroverted thinking, let's look at extroverted feeling. I struggle with this one, so I don't know how much insight I will have to offer, but let's read and see if this clarifies anything for me, because ultimately when I look at a text that is trying to explain something and I don't have knowledge in that area, I'm hoping to gain something from it. I want you to tell me what I'm not experiencing or what I'm blind to. Okay. The process of extroverted feeling often involves a desire to connect with or disconnect from others, and is often evidenced by expressions of warmth or displeasure and self-disclosure. Self-disclosure for sure. I don't know if it's a form of emotional assurance, but extroverted feeling really telegraphs itself. It's like so loud and expressive with the emotionality, and sometimes very volatile. And to that extent, it's like so much like sort of like expressing and pushing out the emotions. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't match you. I can't meet you where you are. Are you expecting me? Is this transactional? Am I expected to take and respond to that? Am I expected to output or produce emotions as well? I hope not. And I feel like other people like me who have introverted feeling, we sometimes feel that pressure when we're amongst high extroverted feelers. And maybe sometimes in an unhealthy way there is that pressure or expectation put upon introverted feelers, but mature people or people seeking balance, I think, will respect the fact that not everyone expresses their emotions so outwardly. But yeah, self-disclosure seems to be a part of it. It's kind of like evolutionarily like baring your teeth to show that you're friendly, you're not a threat. What is it? Oh, maybe it's like rolling over and showing your stomach to show that you're not dangerous. I don't know. Or, cats, the aloe rubbing, where they're kind of like getting each other's scents. And they're like, hey, look at me, I'm part of the colony, I'm friendly. Kind of reminds me of something like that, but it's like outward values, maybe outward expression of emotionality. I don't know. Maybe it is kind of evolutionary, and I just sort of missed that aspect of evolution. Somehow it missed me. Being friendly, being considerate, and being appropriate. That's a little unfair. You can be friendly, considerate, and appropriate. You can learn these behaviors. It's called tact. Keeping in touch, laughing at jokes when others laugh, and trying to get people to act kindly to each other also involve extroverted feeling. Yeah, I mean, I do kind of struggle to keep in touch. Sometimes I just forget to do things that reinforce relationships, like contact to reaffirm other people's existence and to reaffirm my own existence to them. Laughing at jokes when others laugh. Yeah, I think I kind of more care about the integrity of humor. I want my expression to have value. So I want someone to know that something is funny when I personally think it's funny. Like, that's the information that I'm communicating. So it would be false of me to laugh at something I don't find funny, because that's like misinformation, isn't it? I don't know. Using this process, we respond according to expressed or even unexpressed wants and needs of others. Y'all should maybe stay away from responding to people's unexpressed wants. Maybe they're unexpressed for a reason. We may ask people what they want or need, or self-disclose to prompt them to talk more about themselves. I mean, that's kind of nice. I'm fine with that. You can talk to me to get me to say more about myself, like it kind of shows an interest, as long as it's a genuine interest. I mean, hopefully you're not just like digging for personal information. This often sparks conversation and lets us know more about them so we can better adjust our behavior to them. Often with this process, we feel pulled to be responsible and take care of others' feelings. Sometimes to the point of not separating our feelings from theirs. I think that's very dangerous. We may recognize and adhere to shared values, feelings, and social norms. Yeah. I think where I kind of diverge from the things that are put forth here is that I often see extroverted feeling as more in terms of constructs. I see extroverted feeling as upholding systems of ethics that are applied within a space. So extroverted feeling is treating an environment as being like an objective space where they have to monitor the emotional value that's being exchanged within it. And to do that, well, first of all, it needs information. It needs emotional information so that it can check the appropriateness. It needs systems like norms, and I feel like it can also kind of play to the lowest common denominator because it's trying to like include everyone. But then it also has this weird kind of habit of like pushing out or alienating people who are not jiving with the objective environment. And that's kind of like the dark side, I feel like, of extroverted feeling. Like I said, extroverted feeling is a pain point for me. I am an INTJ. In Dr. John Beebe's model, it is the seventh function. It is he calls it the trickster. Sometimes it's called the double bind or the blind spot. So something that's very hard for me to conceptually grasp because the core of who I am is kind of like focused within that individualized, personalized system of values that I have created through introverted feeling, which I feel like I can probably get to now. It is often hard to assign words to the values used to make introverted feeling judgments, since they are often associated with images, feelings, tones, and gut reactions more than words. That's interesting. Maybe for some people. For myself, who has it in the tertiary position. So it's something I've had to develop and come to over the course of my life because it was somehow damaged within my childhood and youth. So I've had to work on this a lot. And because I don't have very strong emotional expression and I overregulate my emotions, I am able to verbalize my introverted feeling. Like, I value this. And I don't know if it's because it's really simplified and reductive because it's my third function. And maybe I don't have that full range that a dominant FI would have. So maybe for someone like an INFP or an ISFP, it would be much harder for them to express in words what their FI is doing. But certainly, especially ISFPs and INFPs, they're very artistic people. They can express things, images, tones, and art. And I don't think that's less valid than expressing it through like nonverbal or verbal expression. I guess art is kind of nonverbal, but it's like a complex production that is beyond just like the moment to moment emotional expression through like your facial expressions and your body expressions. I don't think it's less valid than FE expression of their emotions. Okay, as a cognitive process, it often serves as a filter for information that matches what is valued, wanted, or worth believing in. There can be a continual weighing of the situational worth or importance of everything and a patient balancing of the core issues of peace and conflict. I think FI is known for internal conflict. And it's always sort of like wrestling with the light and the dark, positive and the negative, and this sort of like deep emotional stew. And it's just kind of like processing through these, maybe it's an NI thing for me. I'm conceptually kind of processing through the values of things. But maybe for another individual, maybe they're more like the light and dark, the pain and the sort of like pleasure of SI, like experiences, like sensual experiences, or the past nostalgia. Sometimes you're just processing very deep emotional thoughts, if that makes sense. I don't think that's contradictory to say emotional thoughts, even though we're doing the dichotomy between thinking and feeling. We engage in the process of introverted feeling when a value is compromised, and we think, sometimes some things just have to be said. Yeah, I think whenever a value is violated, there is this need to respond emotionally in some way. On the other hand, most of the time this process works in private. Yeah. And is expressed through actions. Yeah, I think so. Your actions have to be in congruence with your introverted feeling. It helps us know when people are being fake or insincere. Yeah. Or if they are basically good, bruh, you're basically good. It is like having an internal sense of the essence. That's very true. The vibe or the essence of someone, their general mood, or a project and reading fine distinctions among feeling tones. I don't know what the hell you're saying. What is that sentence? Feeling tones. I'm just imagining these like wind chimes. Like emotion. Chime, 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 chime. Okay, let's talk about TI. I'm a big fan of TI. Introverted thinking often involves finding just the right word to clearly express an idea concisely, crisply, and to the point. That's a weird one. I think you can adopt certain tactics when communicating so that it's more clear, it's more crisp and to the point. I don't think that's necessarily something that TI does. In fact, TI rambles a lot. And they talk a lot about whatever it is that is the subject, because they have so much damn information in their TISI. Yeah, thinking about INTPs, honestly. You can have, other things. Paired with TI. I mean, obviously, you can have TINI. Is TINI any less verbose? Is it any more fixed? I think NI helps the TI when it's paired with it to be a little bit more to the point. But no, INTPs are very rambly. ISTPs are very stoic. So, yeah, maybe that's the TINI. Interesting. But if you get an ISTP on a topic that they know pretty well, they can talk. They can explain things, especially functionally. So that's interesting. I wouldn't give that to TI at all. Using introverted thinking is like having an internal sense of essential qualities of something, noticing the fine distinctions that make it what it is and then naming it. That's also weird, because it could be SI or NI, fine distinctions. I feel like that might be more of an awareness thing. It also involves an internal reasoning process. That's true. Deriving subcategories of classes and subprinciples of general principles. These can then be used in problem-solving analysis and refining of a product or an idea. I don't know if I like this description at all. This process is evidenced in behaviors like taking things or ideas apart to figure out how they work. Now, that's true. I think TI can really get into the nitty-gritty of really taking things apart, definitely. I feel like NI kind of does some deconstruction in its processes as well. I don't think NI is quite as thorough as TI. I feel like SI too can pick things apart. Yeah, so I feel like TI, SI, and NI all do analysis. The analysis involves looking at different sides of an issue and seeing where there is inconsistency. That I agree with. So I think what we're looking at here is the central tendency of logic. So is the premise correct or incorrect? So your own personal logic. That's what TI is. In doing so, we search for a leverage point that will fix problems with the least amount of effort or damage to the system. Least amount of effort or damage to the system. I don't know. TI can get very intricate and complicated. Sometimes TI can make things more complex, whereas TE can kind of bootstrap things and just make it functional because it cares about function. Whereas TI cares about performance. It wants precision. It wants to reduce scatter. So it wants a really precise answer to something. It doesn't want to be so messy. We engage in this process when we notice logical inconsistencies between statements and frameworks, using a model to evaluate the likely accuracy of what's observed. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of misgivings with this representation of TI. I think it's not really providing useful information. I don't know. If you're an introverted thinking dominant person, because I'm not. Like, I'm a TE user. But I feel like this definition has too much crossover with NI and SI. So it's not really getting to the essence of what introverted thinking is, unless I'm misunderstanding this description, or it's just not, the description is not precise enough. Let me know how you feel about some of these descriptions. I pointed out where maybe my thoughts diverge, so I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Yeah, so if you think, you feel, you're human, and have a good day.